Welcome to this episode of the Upfront Podcast. As always, I am your host, Nina Mueller, and this is the place where you get your dose of upfront and honest conversations with people from all around the world. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. My guest today is Naftali Aklum. Naftali made Aliyah to Israel from Ethiopia when he was but a child. Aliyah is the immigration process of Jews from all over the world coming to Israel and becoming Israeli citizens. If you'd like to learn more about Aliyah, you may want to read up on the Law of Return. Naftali and I are talking about his family's harrowing journey to Israel and his work nowadays as a public speaker and lecturer on inclusion, representation, and his work against racism and for awareness and knowledge. We are also discussing what it is like to be a minority within a minority, Israeli policies, the split between forced assimilation and respecting one's own identity, systemic discrimination, police brutality, and racial profiling. I hope this episode helps Israelis and others to understand the history of the Ethiopian Jews better, the so-called Beta Israel, and that this will contribute to a more inclusive and respectful society. Now, for everyone listening in Israel, please go vote on November 1st. It may just make enough of a difference. Hi, Naftali. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank God. How are you, Nina?
I'm great. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to have you here. So please tell me a bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Naftali Aklum. I live in Beersheba with my family. Made Aliyah when I was 6 months old from Ethiopia. And my family were among the first group to do the journey from Ethiopia to Sudan, and later on from Sudan to Israel in the 80s.
That's really fascinating. Do you belong to like a special tribe in Ethiopia?
I would not say tribe, but I don't know how much you know about Ethiopia, but Ethiopia have lots of different ethnic groups. And my family originally from the area of Tigray. We belong to the Tigrinian people.
Right.
While most of the Ethiopian Jews who live here in Israel belongs to the Gondar Amhara region. So, yeah, we are from Tigray. It's up north in Ethiopia.
So is that part of Beta Israel or Falashmura or something like that?
So Beta Israel, it's all the Ethiopian Jews. It doesn't matter where you come from. You can be Beta Israel from Gondar. You can be Beta Israel from Tigray.
Oh, I see.
So we are all Beta Israel.
All right. Can you explain a bit what Beta Israel actually is or what it means?
Well, Beta Israel, it's the house of Israel. This is how we called ourselves in Ethiopia for the last few hundred years. And lots of people are mistaken and using the term falasha to call us the Ethiopian Jews. And this is a great way to correct them and tell them that falasha, it's a bad nickname given to us by the non-Jews in Ethiopia. It means that if you are a falasha, you are a stranger. You don't have the rights to have land. It's a bad nickname. And this is not our name. Our name is the Beta Israel community, the house of Israel.
Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know that. So in the 80s and 90s, as you've also mentioned, many Ethiopian Jews were rescued and brought to Israel. How did your family come to be in Israel? So you described a bit the journey, but what was that like in terms of emotions, preparation? How did that come along?
Well, my family, we have a unique and very special story because my brother, may rest in peace, Naftali Aklum, he was one of the first Jews to make the journey from Ethiopia to Sudan. He was a wanted man in Ethiopia because of his activities. He was responsible to bring Jews in 1977 under the armed deal between the government of Israel and the dictator of Ethiopia, Mengistu Haile Mariam. There was a deal that the state of Israel will give weapon and advice to Mengistu Haile Mariam. And in return, Mengistu Haile Mariam will let the Jews leave the country. So my brother was responsible to bring 120 Ethiopian Jews from the area of Gondar to Israel in 1977. And that deal canceled because the foreign minister at that time of the state of Israel, Moshe Dayan, he had a press conference in Geneva, and he told the world about the deal between Ethiopia and Israel. and that was a secret deal. And due to that, my brother became a wanted man in his own country, and he had to save his life. And the only way to save his life is to leave the country and to run away to Sudan. When he arrived to Sudan, he contacts some of the Mossad agents, telling them, "It's me, Ferede Aklum. I'm in Khartoum, Sudan. Please save me." And this is how the Mossad arrived to Sudan. Then the whole journey of Ethiopian Jews from Ethiopia to Sudan started.
Did that have anything to do with the Red Sea diving resort?
Well, the Red Sea diving resort came about a year or 2 years later. We came in 1980. The Mossad was, alongside my brother, was working in Sudan, in the capital city, Khartoum. They used to bring the families to Sudan and rent them houses in Sudan for a week or 2 weeks. During that time, they were, working on the fake passport and all the things. And they flew them from Sudan to Greece and from Greece to Israel. So this is how my family came. We stayed 1 week in Sudan, and then we flew from Sudan to Greece and from Greece to Israel. But when thousands of people started to came, they went directly to the refugee camps in Sudan. And this is why they thought of a different way to bring the Ethiopian Jews. And this is how the Red Sea diving resort idea came. And that was also for another 2 years until Operation Moises in 1984.
So what was the process of Aliyah like? Did your brother or your entire family, I guess, did they have to sort of seek political refuge, or were they actually allowed back then to make Aliyah, or how did that work?
So we came to Israel because we dreamed about Jerusalem for thousands of years. Not only my family, the whole Ethiopian Jews. We spoke earlier about the Sigd holiday that will come next month, which is a holiday that shows a longing of Ethiopian Jews to Jerusalem. In Ethiopia, 50 days after Yom Kippur, we, the Ethiopian Jews, were climbing up to a high mountain with our spiritual leaders, every village in Ethiopia with the Jews. And on the top of the mountain, we used to read from the Torah, fast, pray, and asking God one thing: bring us back home to Zion. The dream to be in Jerusalem one day, it's a dream that passed from generation to generation. And when that opportunity came, Ethiopian Jews left everything behind, their house, their land, their properties, and they were going to the unknown because no one promised them that in the end they will make it to Jerusalem. But they saw an opportunity, and the opportunity was to come to Sudan and from Sudan to Israel. So my family, we stayed 1 week in Khartoum, Sudan, and we flew to Greece. And from Greece, we made Aliyah to Israel. We became citizens here. They sent us to observation center in the south of Israel. We stayed there for 2 years. And then we moved to our house in the city of Beersheba, down south, the capital of the Negev. And we're still here.
In the same house?
Not the same house.
Oh, okay. The same place.
My parents lived in the same house, but we, the brothers, we all moved. But yeah, we still have the same house, and my mother lives in that house.
That's beautiful. Kind of poetic, actually. I recently read a story in a newspaper on Ethiopian Aliyah nowadays, and there seems to be a lot of restrictions still, specifically for Ethiopian immigration to Israel, and many families are still separated. Do you see this changing in the future, or what is your experience with that?
Well, election coming, and during election time, everyone speak about the Ethiopian Jews who still remain in Ethiopia. Unfortunately, for 20 or even more years, families being separated. You can find mother here and their children there, children there, here, and their mother there. And it's something that I quietly don't understand how it's still happening. We need to bring them as soon as possible. They can't wait more. It's never happened when we speak about Aliyah from, example, France or Russia or different places in Europe. but it's always happening when it comes to the Ethiopian Jews and the aliyah of the Ethiopian Jews from Ethiopia. So we have a big questions why it's happening. We know why, but we don't believe still. We want to believe different.
Do you think it has to do with racism?
I'm I'm quite sure. I
Mm,
mean, I don't see any other reason.
right.
I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah, it is very, very suspicious to say the least that people from, let's say, majority of white people making aliyah seems to be going very differently. So that's,
I
yeah.
will I will tell you this: the Jewish agency working all over the world, trying to bring Jews to Israel.
Hmm.
You know, they convince them to come. They do programs. They invest money on that. And here you have a country with people that wants to come, Jews who wants to come. And the Jewish agency is not working in Ethiopia. That's the only country they don't work, you know, and still they don't come yet,
Hmm.
you know.
What do you think are some of the main issues that Ethiopians are facing once they arrive in Israel, either before or I guess now, which is very different, I guess, because also the country has developed in some aspects. What do you think is the most difficult thing to adjust to and all that?
Well, for example, for my family, when we came to Israel in the early 80s, I mean, there is
Hmm.
a big difference between the two countries coming from Ethiopia to Israel, from a third world country to a very Western country.
Hmm.
So that's the big challenge. It's not easy. But I think that the biggest challenge that we're still facing here, and it doesn't matter how many years you live here, it's the issue of racism, discrimination, and police brutality. I think that we as a community, we have lots of things to contribute to the society here in Israel. But until that day that we will not fix or minimize the problem with racism, discrimination, and police brutality, it will always be very difficult for us. And this is why, by the way, Nina, I'm doing what I'm doing, trying to minimize racism, discrimination, police brutality, because again, a lot of people in the Israeli society, when they hear about the Ethiopian Jews, it's mainly negative news that they hear on news. And I'm here to show who we are, our story, our history. I truly believe that the more people will know who are the Beta Israel community, what's their story, we will be able to create a better society for the state of Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that is mainly the reason why I so desperately wanted to have you on my podcast, because I think knowledge comes through awareness. And I hope this is going to impact some people and maybe even change a few people's perspective.
Well, it's we are there. We're doing that slowly, slowly.
Exactly. Uh, do you have any idea of what the situation in Ethiopia is like for Jews at the moment?
Well, that's a very interesting question, as you know, and as the whole world know, there is a war going on in
Hmm.
Ethiopia for more than 2 years, and I told you before about the ethnic groups in Ethiopia. So I told you that my family are from the area of Tigray, and most of the Ethiopian Jews are from the area of Gondar, Amhara,
Hmm.
and Tigray. It's the area that where the war is going on now. I will not even call it a war. It's the government of Ethiopia is really trying to kill the Tigrinian people, and this is what we see in the last 2 years. You know, people that millions of people that going to refugee camps, hundreds of thousands of Tigrinian people who are dying in Tigray. No internet, no connection, nothing, and it's affecting the Ethiopian Jews here in Israel, because you have people from the area of Tigray, Ethiopian Jews,
Hmm.
and you have Ethiopian Jews from the area of Gondar. We have extremists from both sides that want to light up this fire and to make effect here in Israel. And unfortunately, it's happening. It's happening on Facebook. It's happening on TikTok. You can see Lots of people, Jews, Ethiopian Jews, that fighting against each other because of the war in Ethiopia today. And it's sad because it's not supposed to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
as you've mentioned shortly, and yeah, I just wanted to bring that up again. So, you're a speaker on behalf of the community. What do you think is it like for Ethiopians in Israel right now? Is it actually the dream of Zion they had always pictured, or do you think most become disillusioned by many issues, like you said, racism, social injustice, and so on?
So to that question, I will try to do it to answer you differently.
Hmm.
Uh, for example, for our parents, the old generation, when they came
Hmm.
here, for them, the most important thing was to be here, to fulfill that dream, and to be buried here. They also felt racism, discrimination, but for them, that was a small thing. The most important thing was that they fulfill their dream. Their children will create or build a house here in Israel, and they will be buried here. For the younger generation, it's different. We don't have the same religious idea of Israel. I mean, we all Jews, we all believe in God, but we are part of this Western world. I mean, we grew up to this, and we
Hmm.
want, we have our obligation, and we have to do things. We have to go to the army. We have to do lots of things as citizens, but in the same time, we want to earn our rights, and our rights is, to live in a country that don't have racism and discrimination just because I'm a black man. So we see it differently from our parents, but I can see a change in the last 10 years from where my community used to be and where she is now. I can see movement. I can see a lot of Ethiopian women in my community really, going to a high career and make it. And we can see a lot of Ethiopian Jews in different areas, in different, even government offices. So we do have a hope that our community will even look better 10 years from now. And because of that hope, we are doing what we are doing in order to change that. If we would not have that hope, I'm not sure we will even work or put, all the things that we are doing for that. It's the hope that brought our parents here, and it's the hope that will make my community in a better situation even more than now in 10 years from now.
Do you feel like young people now that have already been born in Israel, do you feel like they still carry that conflict, like you explained before, from Ethiopia, or is that getting better as well?
Well, there is another conflict they have today in Ethiopia, but being black, Jew, and Israeli, it's not easy. Being Jew all over the world, we know what it can bring. It can bring a lot of anti-Semitism against you. Being black around the world can bring racist people in front of your door. But try to think about being both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not easy. And when I was a kid, I had identity problems. In one hand, I remember I really so deeply wanted to be part of the Israeli society that I thought to myself, the best way to be part of the Israeli society will be if I will delete everything my parents came with from Ethiopia, the music, the food, the traditional, the culture. And I was wrong for many, many years, because the beauty of this country of Israel, it's the richness of the people that are living here. Everyone come and bring something, and we have to keep it. And it's something that, I really thought like that will be the best way for me to be part of this new society. And also being black, sometimes you hear people speaking about black people and slavery and all things that, black people as black people in the world suffer from. And and there is a lot of problems within young people about their identity, being black, Jew, and Israeli. And this is also something we're doing today, trying to tell the young generation to be proud of themselves. Black is beautiful. And yeah, being Jewish, it's a blessing, and we can combine them too. I'm always saying to myself, I'm a gift to this world. I'm black and I'm a Jew and I'm a human being and I'm a gift to this world. So this is what we are trying to do. But we know that a lot of young Ethiopian Israelis suffering from identity problems.
Yeah, I can only kind of imagine how difficult it must be being sort of a minority within a minority. So
Yeah,
I can only, yeah, imagine how difficult that must be. How do you feel like, especially young people or people at any age, um, in the Ethiopian community can sort of figure out their identity and not feel sort of forced to assimilate
yeah.
to like the general population in Israel?
A man without the knowledge of his past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. If
Mm,
you want, you have to know yourself. And I'm always telling people, know who you are, know your history, know your parents, speak with your parents. A lot of people don't speak with their parents, don't ask them questions about life in Ethiopia. And they have to start know themselves. Once you know yourself, you know who you are and you know you're worth something. But when you don't know nothing about yourself, you're like a tree without roots.
absolutely. So we've quickly mentioned before other sort of communities within Ethiopian Jews. There's also a group that I read about which are now Christian, but that have Jewish ancestors, and they had to convert to Christianity for safety purposes. Do you kind of feel that Beta Israel and I think they're called Falash Mora? I'm
Right,
not
yes.
sure.
Yeah.
How do you, those two communities, how do you feel about each other? Is there a sense of community because of like commonality in history, or is there like a separation?
Well, you will find in my community people that will say, oh, they are not Jews, they are Christians. They just want to make their life better and they pretending that they are Jews and they coming here to make their life better. You will find people in my community that will say that. In the same time, you will find people that will say, uh, they were forced to convert in the late 19th century due to lots of problems at that time. And they truly want to come and be Jews again. So you will find people supporting that, people supporting that. If you ask me, I think that they deserve to be here. They need a second chance to live by, them being Jews. And for me, the most important thing is that if you brought someone, you brought his mother, how can you leave behind her children? That's not human. It's beyond Jew, Christian, Muslim. It's humanity. It's being human being. You don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. What I noticed when I made Aliyah, I sort of thought it would be a melting pot of different cultures and different opinions and views and races and all kinds of different identities, so to speak. But I didn't really feel like it was a melting pot of the cultures. Like everything kind of stayed, like everybody stayed kind of on their own corner. There were like a lot of communities, but they were not really mixing as much, like not even in exchange, I feel like. What do you think are some like culturally shocking things that Ethiopians could face in Israel? Or
Culturally.
if there's too many? I
Well, it's the move from, again. It's not a culture thing. It's a more uh, the Western world to third world country.
Mm,
That's a big shock. Not the culture within the society. That's something when we know that people come from Morocco, people come from Libya, people come from America, and everyone comes with their culture and things like that, and that's nice and that's beautiful. We came
mhm.
with our culture as well.
Yeah.
Um, and by the way, in the last 10 years, we the Ethiopian Jews really trying hard to show the society our our culture, our who we are, our food, our music, our traditional, all the things that we brought from Ethiopia, and we're doing that in the SIGD, which will come next month. And during the whole year, we really trying to show the society who are the Ethiopian Jews. Today, Ethiopian food became very well known, superfood, everyone want to try. That was not something that happened like 15 years ago. 15
Hmm.
years ago, people were not even willing to try Ethiopian Jews, because they were saying, oh, this food from those African people, we don't want to try it. But today, like everyone wants to try. And that makes me happy because we know that the society also changed over the years. They are more able to know the other person that they don't know. They want to know. Unfortunately, the government don't give them a lot of opportunities because in the school, in the education system here in Israel, for example, people don't hear the story of the Ethiopian Jews. You will not go to school and you will hear, oh, the Jews came from Sudan and it's happened like this and this and this. No. And it's because of private people that going to school, forcing the school to tell the children about the Ethiopian Jews, but it's not coming from this government office. But the society wants to know. That's what makes me very happy.
Yeah, it's definitely a very good sign, I think. It's a sign of potential change, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you know what they do teach in schools in Israel in terms of like Jewish history?
Well, it's the things that they were teaching, the Holocaust, but it's not really, it's not something that
Inclusive.
in in school.
Hmm.
I spoke in one school in the center of Israel, in Blich school in Ramat Gan,
Hmm.
and it was the first time that they saw an Ethiopian coming to their school to speak. But to hear the story of the Ethiopian Jews, and I was so happy in the end because one student came to me and he told me, listen, I never had the opportunity to listen and to hear the story of your community. Now I know and I will pass it on. That's great to hear. And that's what motivates me to keep on doing what I'm doing because I know people want to know.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking, not surprising to be honest, that there's still a lot of racism, but it is kind of shocking to hear that from a country where a lot of its people have been persecuted for centuries. So yeah, I think we should definitely be doing better ourselves in order to change,
Yeah,
other
yeah.
societies.
Yeah, but
Uh,
Mina, remember all the time that most of the Jews felt anti-Semitism in the countries that they came from because of them being Jews.
mhm.
It was never because of the color of their skin. That's the difference between, it's not different, but it's not the same, to hate you because of the color of your skin than to hate you because of the religious you believe in. So when lots of people came here, and remember that in those countries also there was a hierarchy between the people. Black was always down in Morocco, in Libya, in all the Muslims countries. The black people are very, very low. They are the lowest people in the hierarchy of their society. So a lot of people, when they came here from those countries, when they see a black man, even though he is Jew, they still see the color of his skin, and this black man remind them the black man of the country that they came from, and he was low over there. So there is no reason that this black man, even though he's Jew, will not be the lowest person here in Israel. This is unfortunately how people think, and we need to change that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a difficult thing to talk about, but it's a very important and necessary thing to talk about, even if it's very uncomfortable for
Yeah,
some.
I'm always saying, Nina, and also in my lectures, I'm a lecturer that I'm not afraid to speak about those things. If we want to change things, we cannot hide things. If we want to solve problems, we cannot hide them. We have to put them on the table to speak about them. And when we will speak, we will find ways to solve the problem. But if we will hide it, it will always be there. It will always find its way out. We
Hmm.
have to speak about. It's not a bad thing to speak about negative issues. You have to speak about them and try to find ways to solve them.
Absolutely. So you're a public speaker on behalf of the Ethiopian community, if I may say so. What do you wish to change? Like we've already spoken on changes in the population. Hopefully, that will come with more awareness and inclusivity and representation in most parts of the world. What do you wish for change in Israeli policy, like on governmental level?
Well, first, I would like the Ministry of Education to tell the story of the Ethiopian Jews in schools. I will want the government to deal with racism more, you know. I don't think there is any law against racism here in Israel. Nothing that is under the law, something like that.
Hmm.
But for me, the most important thing, really, Nina, is that our story will be part of the Jewish stories of lots of communities from all over the world. My story, it's not only my story, it's your story, Nina, as well. It's the stories of all the Jewish people. It's a beautiful, beautiful story that it's about time that people will hear and will know. I believe that we, the Ethiopian Jews, we have lots of things to contribute to the state of Israel, and not only to the state of Israel, to Jewish people all over the world. We can strengthen the relationship between the Jews in America and Black people in America because we feel the two communities. We know how it is to be a Black man and we know how it is to be a Jewish man. So we are the gap. We can close this gap. You know, if people will understand the value of the Ethiopian Jews, we will be able to solve a lot of problems for the Jews and in the Israeli society here as well.
I'm actually kind of shocked to hear that there is no discrimination law or prohibiting, like, no law prohibiting discrimination or racism or anything like that,
No, you have to fight against it in law, but there is in the court, but there is no really law against that.
which makes it hard to legally.
Yeah, and when
Um,
you and yeah, and when you have and when you go to the court, you have to, find ways to explain why this is racism, and there is
mhm,
no specific law against that.
right. Is there a particular political part in Israel that cares more about minorities than others, such as like immigrants or refugees? Do you think?
Well, it's always the left that cares more. Even though the left today, it's not the left that was here 20 years ago. I know that the Labour Party were, really for refugees and Black people and minorities in the country.
Hmm.
But it's not the same parties today. It's like everyone looks the same for me. I don't see
Hmm.
left or right, and this is why it's very hard to choose today in Israel. You
Do you
know,
feel like the left has shifted to the right as well?
yeah, yeah, because the whole country is, it's like 80% of the people here in Israel are more right wings, and if they want to survive in this politics game, they have to change themselves as well. At least try to change. They have to come more to the center and to the right. They cannot stay
Mm,
there because there is no left in Israel more like it used to be.
right. I feel like there is, for a lot of, let's say, minorities in Israel, there's no real inclusion or representation, politically speaking. Do you feel like Ethiopians are represented at all in the government?
Well, I'm saying what they're doing. Those, I'm not a politician,
Mm,
but I can see what they are doing. They still divide and rule. They taking a representative from one community, they put him in a party, and they say, "Oh, you have a voice here. You have a voice here. You have a voice here." But this voice, it's a one person in a big party. I mean, that's for the election. What happened after that? Same
mhm,
problem, same thing, same. And we, the normal people, we doing, we follow that. We say, oh, we have someone that will represent us in the Likud party or in Benny Gantz party. Oh, so we have Plina Tamanoshata and we have this. So we will follow because we have someone from our community there. And I guess it's not enough. We don't have lots of power. and maybe it's a good idea to have a party for minorities, and minorities will vote for not single politician, but for a party. And when you are a party, you have lots of power because one party can change governments. So who knows?
Yeah, we can only hope, right?
Yeah. Hope it's important.
Now I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, for the Sikh holiday in
I
November.
Yeah, it's going to be in November, the sixth party. It's a holiday, it's not a party. Ethiopia, here we changed that a little bit, but in Ethiopia it was like a very hard day. People were fasting, climbing up to mountain, praying, and all this, and only in the evening they were going down to the village having a big celebration dinner. But here we changed that a little bit. We make it much more happy because it's also one more way for us to show the society who we are. So we don't want to make it a burden on people. We want to make it much more easy and nice for them to accept it. So here it's much more easy, and it's a beautiful day. If you never experienced the Sikh holiday in Jerusalem, you have to make sure you're going to do it next month. It's beautiful, really.
And so it's only one day, is that correct?
Yeah, it's one day.
Okay. How do you celebrate, if I may ask?
So we going to Jerusalem to Armona Natziv, and then we have the view of Jerusalem, and we have prayers from the Kesim, our spiritual leaders, and then we have music and food, and it's a gathering. It's a gathering of all the community from all over the world. You can meet people that you didn't see them for many years, and you will find them there. And it's a spiritual day in Jerusalem for not only for the community, for the whole society to come and take part of it. But it's food, music, and it's a lot of spiritual in that day.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. How can non-Ethiopians sort of help you celebrate or make the holiday even better?
Well, if you have your own community, your own people, and you want to do something, order someone to come and speak about the Ethiopian Jews. Try to open yourself for this community. Maybe try Ethiopian food that evening. We want to spread it all over the country. It's not staying only in Jerusalem. It's all over the month. It's like in Jerusalem, it's a one-day event, but for us, it's all over the month. We're doing lots of things in different municipalities, different cities, different organizations throughout the whole month.
That sounds amazing.
It is amazing.
Now, we have listeners from all over the world, really. What do you want them to consider in their everyday life to be part of a society that works towards becoming more inclusive?
Yeah, well, I will tell your listeners to accept people the way they are. No matter who they are, they can be Jews, they can be Christians, they can be Muslims, they can be white, they can be black, they can be yellow. Just live your life and let other people live their life. As long as they don't hurt you, let them live. Music is important. Listen to music. Love and prosperity, that's all, Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. And now for everyone who's in Israel and listening, please go vote in the next election and keep other communities in mind while you do so. Is there anything you'd like to add, Naftali?
No, just enjoy the rest of the year. Have fun.
Thank you so much for doing this, Naftali. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Upfront Podcast. Please do consider subscribing wherever you are listening right now, so you won't miss out on any new episodes. You can also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at The Upfront Podcast and join in the conversation. See you next time.